Okay. Resilient. Why is it resilient? Because it's 80% what? Water. Yes. 80% water. Yes. Okay. And cartilage is avascular. A-V-A-S-C-U-L-A-R. And again, what does that mean?
It doesn't have any blood.
Doesn't have a blood supply, right? Okay. We're going to talk about that in a minute, how cartilage, if it had blood vessels running through it, every time you jumped up and down on your knees or such, you'd be squeezing a blood vessel, right? Or you get down on your knees and you're hammering those shingles down and you're squeezing on that cartilage and it stopped the blood supply. Yes? Okay. Okay. Same with nerves. You don't have nerves in there. Say this is a meniscus, right? Actually shaped a little bit more kind of like this. But anyway, say that's a meniscus. If you had nerves in there, every time you went up for a rebound and came down, you'd be crunching those nerves, right? Yes? Okay. Let me make my picture bigger. Okay. Around the outside of that cartilage here, you have the perichondrium. P-E-R-I, perichondrium, right? Chondro means cartilage. C-H-O-N-D-R-O. Chondro always means cartilage, right? Peri means around, right? Okay, the perichondrium around the cartilage. It's a layer of dense, irregular connective tissue. And it acts like a girdle. Now, you ladies don't wear girdles, but when I was a kid, all the women wore girdles, right? Yes, my mom holding on the girdle, right? And what does a girdle do?
Sucks everything in.
Right? I didn't know, I learned this too. They have them for men, right? Spanx for men, right? I've seen them at in the mall, yes. Our girdle resists outward expansion, yes? So, when you go up for a rebound and you come down, that perichondrium keeps that cartilage from going up, yes? That's what a girdle does. It resists outward expansion, yes? Okay? And such, right? There's usually two layers to this, and the inner layer is the stem cells that grow cartilage. And we're going to talk about the two types of cartilage growth in just a moment, okay? Now, if you've ever had a cartilage injury, you know it's very slow to heal. And the reason being is, maybe here's a blood vessel. What happens is that you'll have blood vessels, yes, but again, they don't enter the cartilage. And so what happens is that nutrients and oxygen and this and that have to diffuse, right? Remember we talked about diffusion, yes? Spray the perfume, spreads out, it diffuses, yes? So, because there are no blood vessels in the cartilage, the nutrients have to diffuse through the jelly-like substance, yes? Okay? And because of that diffusion, and because that's the way it works, cartilage, it takes a long time to heal up because it doesn't have a good blood supply. And it also, most of the cartilage in the body is not usually thicker than that because it's got to The nutrients have to diffuse in there. There's not just a blood supply right straight to it. Okay? Okay. All right? You have little structures in the cartilage called Lacunae, lacuna, right? And that actually means cave. And then inside that, you will have the chondrocytes, right? Or the chondroblasts, right? Now, remember, chondroblasts, and when they mature, remember the baby, B for baby, and when they mature, the chondrocytes, right, are mature cartilage cells. And these chondrocytes, when they mature, they lose their ability to divide and such, okay? And so what happens is usually, how old are you, Mr. Joseph?
17.
17? Okay. He's got another year or two of cartilage growth, but you get about 19 years old or so, usually your cartilage is not growing anymore. And if you work it really hard and don't treat it properly, then what happens is it starts wearing down. I've seen pictures of my knees, films of my knees. Yikes. Scary how much cartilage I have gone. But anyway, okay? So this is a chondroblast or a chondrocyte, either or. Right? Okay? Now remember, it'll secrete this jelly-like substance, right? But it's made in water. And there'll be fibers that hold it together, right? Yes? Extracellular matrix. Extracellular matrix, right? Secreted by the chondroblast, yes? Okay? Now, okay, real quickly, let's talk about, remember in my book it's on page 130. I can't remember what it is in your book. But anyway, there's a lovely picture, and it shows the axial and the appendicular skeleton, and it shows, yeah, right there, young lady. Yeah, you had it right there. Yeah.
153 on our book.
Say that again.
153.
153. Let me look at your book right quick. Yes, that's the best. That's the best. And you have to know, we're going to talk about the 3 types of cartilage, and you got to know that, you got to know that, you got to know that, because I'm going to ask you this cartilage up here, or this cartilage here, right? Okay. Number 1, hyaline. It's blue-white cartilage, yes? It's the most common cartilage that we have. This cartilage right here, yes, on the front of our chest, that's hyaline. On the tip of our nose, that's hyaline. And remember we talked about, right, articular cartilage, cartilage on the end of that bone, say your elbow, right, articular cartilage, that's hyaline, okay? Most common type that you got in your body, yes? Okay, by the way, your trachea, right, it's that hyaline cartilage. Right, your larynx, your voice box, hyaline cartilage. Okay, yes. As your trachea comes down and splits, right, these 2 branches are called bronchi, right? You've heard the term bronchitis, right? When you got bronchitis, it's right here. It's not your whole lungs, it's not way down low or deep, it's right here in the middle. These bronchi, right? Yes? Okay. Oh, by the way, where that splits there, see it's a V, right? Yeah. That's the carina, which is like the hull or the tip of a boat. But I can't remember. It's from Holland or Denmark or one of those countries. Anyway, the language. That's what that comes from. Right? Now, number 2, right? Elastic, E-L-A-S-T-I-C, right? Elastic. This cartilage is very, very, very resilient, right? Yes? And you have it 2 spots that I know about, right? And number 1 is your ear, and number 2 is
Epiglottis.
epiglottis. Epiglottis goes down and covers the glottis, so that way when you're drinking your beer, don't go down the wrong hole, because that's way bad when it goes down the wrong hole, right? Because you start coughing immediately, if it does, yes? So, the pinna of the ear, and the epiglottis, right? And the third being the fibro, F-I-B-R-O, the fibrocartilage, yes? Fibrocartilage is the toughest, the strongest cartilage, right? You have it in your spinal discs are made of fibrocartilage. Your pubic symphysis is fibrocartilage. And also to these menisci, that's plural with the I on the end, menisci, right? Those are fibrocartilage. It's very tough stuff, okay? Places that are subject to pressure and stretch, okay? Now, let's talk about this cartilage, how it grows. Two types of growth, okay? You need to know this because we're going to talk about the same thing on bones, right? Two types of growth, right? The apopsitional, appositional versus interstitial. Okay, right? Let me explain what that means. Growth from the outside, growth from the inside, okay? Appositional means this. Remember we talked about the perichondrium here? Well, the inner layer of the perichondrium, right, has these stem cells, and the cartilage will grow from the inner layer of that perichondrium, and that is appositional, right? Right? From the outside, yes? Conversely, in the middle of this cartilage here, you got the chondrocytes right here in the lacuna, yes? And when it grows from the inside, that's interstitial. Interstitial from the inside, appositional from the perichondrium, okay? And that is the two different. That is the difference in the two, right? And again, we said these cells will become chondrocytes, and when they become mature chondrocytes, they'll lose their ability and your cartilage will stop getting thicker, right? But anyway, in here, interstitial growth, in here, appositional growth, right? Oh, by the way, when we talk about bone, we're not going to say perichondrium, we're going to say periosteum, right? Osteo for bone, and guess what? It has an appositional bone growth too, okay? But anyway, right? I just threw that in because I like it. So, anyway, yeah. Okay? Right, but again, growth from the outside and growth from the inside. That's the way I remember it, right? Okay? Yes. Okay, now, we're going to switch over from cartilage because we'll talk more about that in a future chapter, but anyway. Okay, and we're going to talk about some bones. Now, I'm a chiro and I love bones. Bones are amazing. Everything fun that you do, from riding roller coasters from riding roller coasters to riding motorcycles to, right? All the fun stuff you can do because bones, right? Yes. Do you see things that don't have bones driving a stick shift? No, you don't, right? Okay. So bones allow us to do these amazing things, right? Play football. Play football. Yes? Yes? You want to hear my football story? I played intramural football and I was about this big around in high school. Yes? And so nobody paid attention to me. It was just, our quarterback, nothing, nobody. And it was a tight game and it was right at the end. And I told the guy, I'm going right across the goal line. Nobody's covering me. You just throw the ball right to me. Just throw the ball right to me. We're going to win this game, right? He's like, no, yeah, right. And we're in the huddle. And I'm like, no, really, nobody's covering me. I'm running right across the goal line. Throw it right to me. Yeah, right. Now, no, throw me the ball. We're going to win this game. So We hiked the ball, and I ran across the line, and he threw the ball to me, and it hit me in the chest, and I dropped it. Yeah. Yeah, right? But that's not the end of the story, right? Because you ran back to the huddle, and you know what I did? I got in his face, and I said, "You throw the ball to me again. I'm going to catch it this time," right? And he did, and we won the game, right? You see, most people are losers, and when they fail, they quit, right? And for about 30 seconds, I felt not too good about Dr. Weld, right? Yes? But right quick, I sucked it up, and I ran in there, and I said, "Throw it to me again. I'm going to catch it this time." And he did, and we won, right? So, take a lesson. Yes, sometimes, right after your failures, you have some big successes. Yes, it's true. True. You just have to decide whether you're going to act like a loser or whether you're going to be a winner. It's up to you, right? Your behavior. Okay, here we go. Yes? My friend Bill, went to college with him. Bill couldn't pass X-ray for his life. He took that class 3 times, and he finally passed it the 3rd time. And you know what? He's like 5 times more successful than me. I wish I had as much money as that guy, but right? But he couldn't pass X-ray. But he finally did, yes. Okay, here we go. Bones, right? Axial, A-X-I-A-L, versus appendicular, P-M-D-I-C-U-L-A-R, skeleton, right? Axial versus appendicular skeleton. Yes? Right? Okay? Yes? Earth. It's like round and it spins like this, right? And it spins on its what? Axis, right? So you see, this way, right? Your skull, your spine, your ribs, down to your sacrum. That's your axial. And that's on that drawing. Again, my book, I forget, tell us the page again. Anyway, it shows the difference between the axial and the appendicular skeleton, right? What are these called? And don't say brachial, don't say arms. And what are these called?
Long bones. Appendages.
Appendages, right? Appendages, right? Something that's hooked on is called an appendage, right? Yes? So the pelvis and the legs and the arms are the what skeleton? The appendicular, right? Almost sounds like appendix, right? Yes? Appendicular versus axial skeleton. Axial, up and down, and, okay, I'm going to do it because yeah. Your arms and your legs, your pelvic bones, right? Not the sacrum in the middle, it's axial. But anyway, this is axial, and these are appendicular, right? Yes? Sure enough. Okay, axial versus appendicular, you need to know that, because I may ask the sacrum, right? This little tiny one right here, triangular bone right here, yes? That's axial. This is the long axis of your spine, right? Your skull, your spine, the sacrum, the ribs, yes? Now, the arm, the shoulder blade, it's stuck on, it's hanging on. It's an appendage. So that's your appendicular, yes? Your pelvic bones, right? Your leg bones, right? And under your feet, that's an appendage. That's hooked on, that's your appendicular. That's the difference. Axial versus appendicular, yes? Right? When they study discs, they talk a lot about axial compression. And that's one thing I do to people, right? When I'm worried to have a disc, I'll put my hand on their head and I'll do this. And I'll push down. And if they got a disc, usually they don't like it. So, okay? Okay. The functions of the bone. Number 1, support. Right? You don't have to write these down, just think about it. Number 1, support, yes? So it can stand and walk and do cool stuff. Protection, yes? What do those ribs do? They protect the Heart and lungs, right? Yes. Locomotion, baby, right? Yes. Right? So we can walk around. Well, by the way, the bones are a reservoir for minerals. Yes. Minerals are deposited in our bones. Yes. Ladies, if you get pregnant, going to have a baby, and there's a famine and there's almost no food, that baby needs nutrition. And where's it going to take the nutrition from? You and your skeleton. And you might get osteoporosis if you're not getting enough. Right? Nutrition. Right? And so it's a reservoir for minerals. Yes? Now, here's a fancy word. Hematopoiesis. Hematopoiesis. Okay? Right? What does hemato mean? What does a hematologist specialist in? Don't say it.
Blood.
Blood. Yes, thank you. Thank you, right? A hematologist is a blood doctor. Blood diseases, yes. Hematopoiesis, right? Right? That means blood making, yes. I'm going to draw a picture of the bone. You'll see in the marrow cavity of the long bones, many times that's where we make our blood, yes. Triglyceride, fat storage. That's why your mama puts that soup bone in the soup, because it makes the soup taste really yummy, right? And it boils and boils and boils. You don't eat the bone, you throw that out, give it to the dog, but it's that fat from that marrow that makes the soup taste really good, okay? Yes? Hormone production. Osteocalcin, it's a hormone from the bones, and it stimulates the pancreas to have more of the beta cells that make the insulin, and it keeps us trim. And oh, by the way, people that have type 2 diabetes are low in osteocalcin, right? Right? They don't have enough insulin, or they got too much and they burn out those cells, basically, right? So, osteocalcin, okay? Okay, boy, are y'all in for a treat? I'm going to draw some diagrams. Yes. Okay, here we go. All right, now, the outer part of the bone is real hard, okay? Let's say this is the skull, okay? The outer part of that bone, that's compact bone, right? Right, it's hard. Yes, but the inner part looks like this. Yes, it looks kind of hollow. Yes. And actually it's like this. Okay. But anyway, right? And that's the spongy bone, S-P-O-N-G-Y, right? Trouble is, it's also called cancellous, right? In the skull, they use the German term D-I-P-L-O-E with an umlaut, diploe, right? And let's see, there's one other, trabecular bone, T-R-A-B-E-C-U-L-A-R. Darn it, that's frustrating, isn't it? 4 names for basically spongy bone. But anyway, yes. But the hard stuff is on the outside, right? This is the way bones are, hard on the outside, and especially those flat bones like your scapula, your pelvis, your skull, right? Compact on the outside and spongy on the inside, right? Okay. Now, okay, here we go. Yes? Now, the end of this bone is called the Epiphysis. Epiphysis is the end of the bone, right? The epiphysis, right? Right? The middle of the bone is called the diaphysis, right? Yes? Now, our book does not use this term, but right here where the bone's getting wide, I was taught that is Metaphysis, the metaphysis, right? But anyway, right, the shaft, right, and the end of the bone, yes, okay, where the bone's getting wider. We're talking about long bones, by the way, like your arms and your legs, yes? We're not talking about your skull, we're talking about long bone, if you can tell. I know it's hard, but that's not a skull, that's a long bone, yes? Okay, now, where's my orange one? Yes? Around this bone, we don't have the perichondrium, do we? No, that's around cartilage. We have the what? The osteum, right? Osteo is bone, right? P-E-R-I, peri means around, O-S-T-E-U-M. Periosteum, right? Oh, by the way, you have this marrow cavity, yes, where the bone marrow is. Yes, we said it stores fat, triglycerides, yes. And we have one in here too, and that is called the endosteum. E-N-D-O-S-T-E-U-M, the endosteum, as opposed to the peri. Peri means around, yes? Okay? Okay. The cavity is called the medullary, M-E-D-U-L-L-A-R-Y, the medullary cavity, right? Where the bone marrow is, yes? Okay. We talked yesterday or the day before, right? Before we're mature, before we're fully grown, we have lines here and here, right? And those are called the epiphyseal, right? The epiphyseal line, right? Or the layman's term is the growth plate. They're on the ends of the bone, yes? Right? I think it's probably next chapter we'll talk about epiphyseal growth. Epiphyseal growth is growth from those growth plates, and that's what makes us tall, right? Appositional is from the sides, and the bone gets thicker and bigger, right? Yes. But epiphyseal bone growth, right here, on the ends of these long bones, that's what makes us taller, by the way. Okay? And again, yes, we got articular cartilage, and anybody remember what kind of cartilage that was? The most common, hyaline. There you go. H-Y-A-L-I-N-E. Hyaline cartilage. Yes. Okay. All right, let's see, did I get everything here? Right? And again, just remember that. Perichondrium around the cartilage. Periosteum around the bone. Yes? Okay. The periosteum, two layers. The outer is the fibrous layer, and the inner is the osteogenic layer. Osteobone-genic, right? In the beginning, what's the first book of the Bible?
Genesis.
Genesis. Okay. At least one or two of y'all went to Sunday school. Yes? Genesis, right? Osteogenesis. Making bone, bone making, right? Yes? Now, this periosteum is hooked to the bone by little bitty fibers. And those, I don't know why they put these on the test. It's stupid. But anyway, those are called Sharpies fibers. Eponym, Sharpies fibers, right? I always think of Sharky's burrito. But anyway, Sharpies with a P. Sharpies fibers. I didn't write fibers. F-I-B-E-R-S. Okay? Right? Now, as far as the marrow cavity, you got your yellow and you got your red marrow, okay? Right? Your yellow is fat or lipids or triglycerides. And what would your red be?
What's that?
Hematopoietic or hematopoiesis, right? It's blood making. Hemopoietic tissue, right? Not three U S's, Tissue, tissue, yes? Okay, now, if you take a look over here, a lot of that red marrow is up here, right? This is the head of the humerus. Up here, the head of the femur, and down the shaft of the femur here in the flat bones, right? If they check you for leukemia, the blood cancer, and they do a bone biopsy, right? They're going to lay on your tummy and they're going to go and drill a hole right there, right? Because they want to see that hematopoietic tissue, right? Yes. Okay. Now, the yellow marrow, right? That's fat storage. Yes. That's your soup bone. That's what tastes yummy. Okay. And two, what happens if you have anemia? If you have anemia and there's a gazillion reasons to have anemia, but anyway, if you have anemia, maybe you're not making enough blood or you don't have enough iron, guess what? That yellow marrow gets converted and it'll start turn into hematopoietic, right? Because you need more blood. Yes? Right? So, but commonly, in this flat bone, upper part of the humerus, upper part of the femur, that's especially where we make our blood, folks. Yes? Okay. A couple of terms, a couple of anatomy terms, right? Okay. See where this bulges out, it's nice and round? We call that the head. This is the head of the humerus. This is the head of the femur. The head, okay? Right? Now, when we have a big bulge on that bone, see right here? There's also a smaller one on the underside, right? Let me set this down. Okay? Okay. See that big bulge sticking out there? That's called a trochanter. On the inner side, it's actually, this one's called the greater trochanter. And the one on the inside right here, if you look right there, see that bump? That's the lesser trochanter. Yes? Okay? The greater and the lesser trochanter. So, if you see that word trochanter, you know that means it's a big bump on bone. Okay? A trochanter. Okay? Trochanter. And it's for muscles to attach, right? Yes? Now, this greater trochanter, muscles attached there, right? So you can do this. This is a visual joke. You need to look, Miss Jones. It's a visual joke, right? Right? With your pom-poms, yes. Spread them legs, yeah. You got to have those muscles that, throw that leg out. They attach to the greater trochanter. Yes? Okay? Okay. Man. Okay, trochanters, right? When we have hollow parts of bones up in here, we have the sinuses, right? Yes. Air-filled, yes. Okay. Now, you see this ridge across the scapula? I hate this. Right? Sometime I'm going to put a hook in the ceiling, but anyway. This right here across here, that is the spine of the scapula. The spine, yes, right, ends up in the acromion, right? Yes. Okay. A hole is called a foramen. Foramen. Right? Let's see if he's got one. And he's got one, sure enough. Here we go, right here. Right here in that jaw, it's got a little hole right here, and a blood vessel goes through there, right? Yes? Got one over here too. Yes? Foramen. Okay? But the big one, let me get my skull. The big one, the mega one, the foramen magnum. Yes? See the big hole? That's the foramen magnum. I don't want to draw on him with my pen here. That's the foramen magnum. Guess what? All your brain is not inside your skull. It hangs down about that far. The hind end of the brain, the tail end, right brain stem, yes, comes down below there, but it's wrapped around the foramen magnum, right? So foramen means hole, magnum, this is a big hole, right? Foramen magnum, yes, okay? Oh, by the way, you have a brain injury, right? You're Liam Neeson's wife, you go boom, skiing, and your brain swells up, squeezes on the brain stem, right? Autonomic nervous system affected, stop breathing and die. Way back, yes. Foramen magnum. When you get the swelling and the brain swells and squeezes on that brain stem, right? Right? Breathing centers. We'll talk more about it later. But anyway, okay? That's the foramen magnum. Okay? Okay. Okay. Osteogenic cells, right? Or osteoprogenitor cells, right? Yes. They're mitotically active, yes, and either in the periosteum or the endosteum, yes, right? By the way, what does progenitor mean? Osteoprogenitor. What are your progenitors? Who are your progenitors?
Our parents.
Yes, and your grandparents and their grandparents. Those are your progenitors, right? Yes, they came before you. Yes. Okay. Again, osteoblasts, B-L-A-S-T-S, right? Osteoblasts, right? These are bone forming. And they secrete that matrix, right? The ground substance, the part of the bone that's not alive. Yes. Okay. And then again, when those osteoblasts become mature, osteocytes, right? Osteocytes, right? And remember, the hole around them is called the cave, the lacuna. Yes, right? Yeah, we have one more. Osteoclasts. C-L-A-S-T-S. And the osteoclasts break down bones. Okay? Let me explain. Do I have the same bones that I had when I was 12 years old?
No.
No. Bones are constantly being remodeled. They're constantly being broken down and rebuilt, right? Yes? And so when that process happens and you have the same amount of breakdown as you do build up, right, then you're fine. Yes? Ladies, especially, after you go through the change, right? About 50 years old, sometimes the building up slows down, but the breaking down doesn't. And what do we get? Osteo what? What?
Class.
Okay. Right? What's the disease you got to be careful for?
Osteoporosis.
Osteoporosis, right? Osteoporosis, right? And before it gets to osteoporosis, we call it osteopenia, right? Osteopenia means poor bone, right? A penny is not very much money, is it? Osteopenia, right? You get osteopenia, then osteoporosis. Yes? Okay, it's a continuum kind of, right? Do the DEXA scan, yes? See if your bones are strong. But anyway, right? So, these, you need to know, osteoblasts build the bone up. Osteoclasts, with a C, right? They break the bone down. Yes? Okay? Osteoblast and osteoclast and osteocytes. Yes? Okay. Pardon me one second. This is okay. My last, no. I thought it was black. I was going to say it's my last black one. No, that's my last black one. I need some black ones, right? We talked about that. Okay. Right. This is my go-to gal, by the way. Right? She takes care of me, and I really appreciate her. Right? Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay. The outer part of this bone, the compact bone, right? Compact bone. Yes? Okay. The compact bone, has what's called the Haversian system, and perforating canals. And is that the central? Yeah, this is called the central canal, right? And the central canal is the Haversian canal. That's what I learned, Haversian canal. And these perforating canals are called Volkmann's, Volkmann', Volkmann's canals, right? Basically, all through this compact bone. Now, here we're talking femurs and such, right? You have this system where blood vessels can run through, right? Where nerves can run through, yes? And again, this is vertical, and this is at 90 degrees to that, right? So blood vessels and this and that. We talked about bone has a lot of blood, right? If you break a bone, then within 2 or 3 days, if you take a picture of a broken bone, within 2 or 3 days, if your x-ray tech's really good, you'll be able to see the callus formation, right? Right? Yes? I got motorcycle calluses, right, from the throttle. Yes, callus formation on the bone. And then at a month, they'll take a picture, see how it's healing up. Maybe at 6 weeks, they'll do the same thing and take the cast off, right? But anyway, bone has a lot of blood supply. It's painful to break a bone, right? Okay? Excuse me just a minute. Was it painful? This man broke his femur, by the way. 11 guys jumped on, it took 11 guys, but they all jumped on top of him, and you broke your what?
Femur.
Femur. But he's a tough guy, and he didn't cry or anything, but did he hurt?
Yes.
Yes, major. I can't imagine how bad that hurt to break your femur. Yes? Right? Ouch. Okay? But anyway, it starts bleeding immediately because you got your blood supply. Again, this was called the Haversian system, or these are the central Haversian canal, and that was called Volkmann's. But when we name things after people's names, that's called like eponym. And in medicine, they're trying to get away from that, right? Like chronic kidney disease, they used to call Bright's disease, such, right? But anyway, they're trying to get away from the eponyms, right? People want to be famous. Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's talk just a little bit about cancellous or spongy bone or such. Okay. If the bones were all totally solid, right, our neck would have to be huge, thick, yes, and such. And if you look, right, if you look at this spongy bone, there's some lovely pictures of it in the book. You need to look at the pictures in the book. You see these little skinny things and called trabeculae anyway, right? And the bone is basically hollow, right? And these trabeculae act as struts, yes? Right? You've flown on an airplane before? Man, is that airplane's wing solid? You make the balsa wood airplanes when you were a kid? Like my big brother? No? Okay. You make a balsa wood airplane, it's made out of balsa wood. It's very light, right? And there are struts, just like that, right? Yes? Okay. And then you took the tissue paper material and you put it on top and you painted it with the material called dope, right? And it kind of shrunk and it was tight. Oh, by the way, they do the same thing with World War I airplanes. It was cloth covered with dope, right, over the wooden planes, right? You seen the biplanes, right? Yes, right? Yes, Baron von Richthofen, yes, right? Yes, okay. You see, if that was solid, that plane wouldn't get off the ground, it'd be too heavy. And the best engineering and the best design that we can come up with mimics nature, because nature is amazing in the way it does things. So when the engineers copy nature, right? Right? Can you say Wilbur and Orville? Right? Yes. Yes. My friend John Culver, I've seen it, they're playing, right? But they have a big fence around it, but John's tall. He's a big man, right? He had to touch that airplane. He told me, he said, I saw it, man. But we're Orville's plane. I'm not supposed to, right? Shame on him. But anyway, yes? Mm-hmm. Yes? I was in Dallas, and I was looking at a Van Gogh, and they got a guard sitting there, right there. And it was a sweet little lady, and I said, ma'am, and they had this big counter in front of it so you couldn't get close, right? So I went over there and asked her, I said, can I look really close? I promise I will not touch it. My vision is not that good. She said, okay. So I got my face that close to Vincent's painting. And it was amazing. It was amazing because he painted a bunch with a knife, not just a brush. He revolutionized art, right? His paintings have texture. They're not just flat canvas. They have texture to them if you look at them. But you got to look close. You got to get up kind of close to it, but you can see it. Yes, right? He didn't sell any paintings in his lifetime. He was not successful in his lifetime, right? But he's actually crazy in his lifetime too. Yes, yeah. But anyway, but I asked the lady's permission and she let me, and I didn't touch it. But it was amazing. Yes. Okay, let's see. Where else are we at? See, I have no talent for art, but I love to go to art museums because I know what it takes to do that and how amazing, right? And so, anyway, I'm just really blessed in my life. I got to see that. Yes, right? Yes. I didn't get but like 50 yards from the Mona Lisa because there's a million little Japanese guys with their cameras doing that. So freaking annoying. What really hacks me off is you go to the Louvre, right? And there's people going around with their cell phones going click, click, click. They're not looking at anything, nothing, right? All they're doing is taking a picture. You're supposed to look at it, it's art, right? Yes. This lady yelled at me at Rodin Sculpture Garden. Rodin, you know, the thinker, right? Yes. Because it's big. It's on a big pedestal. He's a big dude. You walk around. I hope you guys get to see it someday. right? But he's big, and this lady's like, "You're going to be in every one of my pictures." I said, "Lady, it's sculpture in the round. You're supposed to look at it. It's not for taking pictures of, right? And from every angle, yes, right? You heard of the famous David, right? Michelangelo's David. He's 9 foot tall. And the first thing all the women do, I've seen it a couple of times, the first thing all the women do when they get there, they got a fence around him too. And the first thing all the women do is walk around to the back and look at his butt. I'm telling you, it's the first thing all the women do. I told some of the guys, I said, well, you just wait. When we get there, we get in there, you watch some women. First thing they're going to do is, guess what they did? They were laughing. Man, how'd you know that? Last time I was here, I know. Can't explain it. It's the truth, right? Yes? 9 foot tall. He's big. He's a big dude. It's way cool. Hope you get to go see him sometime. I really do. It's a lot of fun. Okay? Osteon. Osteon is the structural unit of compact bone. Osteon. Let me tell you the diagram right here. I think in my book it says page 60, but in your book, okay, there's some wonderful diagrams of how the bone is. Page 157 in my book, and
159, 160.
okay, if you look at a single osteon, figure 6.6, okay, a single osteon, you can see, and that bone is wrapped kind of like this in layers, right? Because that makes it strong, okay? Now, if you look at a sheet of plywood, right? Sheet of plywood, it's all these little pieces laminated together, stuck together, right? And the outer part, the fibers run this way. But the next layer, the fibers run this way. And the next layer, they may run that way, right? It's laminated, and that makes it extremely strong. Yes? And that's where our bones are. A layer this way and a layer that way. Okay? Okay. Now, we talked about two. Those osteocytes, those osteoblasts, those osteoclasts, they're alive, but that ground substance that's out that makes up so much of the bone, it's not alive. It's just bone salts, right? Yes, hydroxyapatite, sometimes they'll call it, yes. The cells are alive, but all the minerals that fills it in are not, yes. About a third of bone is alive, yes. Okay, listen to this. Healthy bone is half as strong as steel in resisting compression, right? Compression, squeezing down. Healthy bone is half as strong as steel, okay? But guess what? In tension, tension, pulling this way, healthy bone is just as strong as steel. It's amazing. Bone is amazing, right? Pulling this way, not compression. About half as strong as steel, but in the, right? It's as strong as steel, right? Amazing. Bone is amazing. We can do so many amazing things because bone, yes, right? Yes, I love bones. Bones are my business. And they're very interesting. Yes? Yes, I had a teacher once, she was a bryologist, right? Moss. Was she a very interesting teacher? No. People who think moss is cool, right? But anyway, yeah. Okay. Ossification, O-S-S. Ossification, O-S-S-I-F-I-C-A-T-I-O-N, ossification, right? AKA osteogenesis. Okay, you can shorten this to ossify, O-S-S-I-F-Y. What does to ossify mean? Ossification. Osteogenesis, bone hardening. To ossify means like to harden. Yes. Okay. Ossification. Yes. Okay. Now, okay. There's a lovely diagram. We're going to about the first one, figure 6.8. Okay, figure 6.8. Endochondral. Endochondrial. Endochondral ossification. Right? What in the heck does that mean? Oh, by the way, what does chondro mean?
Cartilage.
Cartilage, okay? Endochondral ossification is this. That little baby in his mama's tummy, his skeleton, especially his long bones, yes, most of it, not all, we're going to talk about the other part in a minute, but most of it is hyaline cartilage, right? Yes? And so when that hyaline cartilage, long bones, let me just write it from the book. Long bones develop from hyaline cartilage, right? Okay, very important. And this starts 8 weeks in utero. Okay, raise your hand if you want to be in the nursing program. Yes? Okay, that's a HESI question, by the way. When does endochondral ossification start? 8 weeks in utero means in the uterus, right? In the uterus, yes? Okay, that's a HESI question, by the way. 8 weeks. So when you are 2 months pregnant, ladies, guess what? That baby's bones are beginning to harden, the long bones, through endochondral. And what type of cartilage is it? It's hyaline, baby. Yes, hyaline. Yes, okay. Now, intramembranous, I-N-T-R-A, intramembranous, right? That's going to be your skull and your clavicles. And it's called intramembranous because it comes from a membrane. Yes? Okay? That's the two. Intramembranous, skull, clavicles, right? From a membrane, that's why it's called intramembranous, right? Those long bones and such, hyaline cartilage, that's endochondral, cartilage, right? But this is from a membrane, so it's called intramembranous, right? It's real simple. Your head and your collarbones, it's a membrane, right? The rest, pretty much, endochondral, yes? Now, okay, these are prenatal. What does prenatal mean? Before birth. Excellent. Before birth, right? Yes. Now, these others are going to be postnatal. Postnatal, and that means after birth, right? Okay, postnatal. Yes. Okay. And that is epiphyseal, E-P-I-P-H-Y-S-E-A-L, epiphyseal bone growth, right? Yes, and remember that's the long bones from the growth plates, from the epiphyseal plate. Remember? These long bones, on the ends of them, right, the end of that bone has a cartilage plate there. And that cartilage plate, when it grows and then it ossifies, you get taller, 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 yes? And again, if you break this growth plate, it's way bad, and they'll shove it back together, put it like it should be, and put a screw in it, right? Because they don't want you to have a short leg, yes? Okay? But very important that you get that. Epiphyseal bone growth, that makes you tall, right? If you get a lot of it, yes? Okay? And again, the other one we talked about earlier also, appositional, A-P-P-O-S-I-T-I-O-N-A-L. Appositional, right? This is where the bone thickens from the periosteum, Periosteum. Okay, let me draw it this way. Here we go. Whoop. There you go, right? And you got your periosteum around here, and when that periosteum, the inner layer grows, it makes the bones thicker, right? Yes? And so, makes the bones thicker. That's periosteal growth, or appositional. Apposition. It's the same with cartilage. When cartilage grows from the perichondrium, it's called appositional, okay? As opposed to interstitial where it grows from the inside, right? But anyway, when that grows from the periosteum, right? Okay? So, we got 4 terms. I'm going to go over them one more time because I'm going to ask you a question about them on the midterm. Yes? Endochondral. Oh, that's easy. Chondro from cartilage, right? That's when you're in your mama's tummy. Oh, by the way, it's hyaline cartilage, and at about 8 weeks it starts to ossify, right? Okay, that one's easy. Endochondral, right? Endo, you're in your mama's uterus, yes? Intramembranous, super simple. It's from a membrane, right? What are the bones? Skull, clavicles, from a membrane. Embryologically, that's where that comes from. Intramembranous, skull and clavicle, right? And we already talked about that. Epiphyseal bone growth, yes? Where that long bone, where this growth plate, where it, when it gets, it thickens, we get taller, yes? My son William, Captain William Weld, he is 6'4". Yes? Yeah. My little son, the 200-pound Marine, yeah. Yeah, he's only 6'2", about that much taller than me. And when those boys want to hack me off, do you know what they call me? You're not going to believe this. You know what those boys call me when they want to hack me off? Shorty. They call me Shorty. I never dreamed I'm the one in the family going to be called Shorty, but they don't do it very often, right? Yes? But anyway, them boys had some epiphyseal bone growth, right? They're both taller than me. Yes? You get tall because epiphyseal bone growth. Now, your bones get thick, right? Because of appositional through the shaft, right? But you get tall because it's epiphyseal bone growth. Oh, by the way, the pathologists are amazing, and they can look at an old set of bones, right? And they can usually tell the age. Why is that?
Wear and tear on the bone.
Okay, that's a very good guess, and that's part of it, but I'm talking about bone growth now.
Growth plate.
Because the growth plates. If they get a femur and they see these, and they see those lines real well, what does that tell them?
Pretty young.
Probably a teenager, right? Or if there's not much of that left and it's solid, maybe even middle age, yes? If you can't hardly see that, right, because of remodeling, it's an older person, yes, right? Okay, so the pathologists are amazing, yes, right? And many times murders are they just get a set of bones, and then they write a report and they tell the police this was 13 to 25-year-old young woman, right? We're going to learn how to look at the pelvis to see if it's a man or woman, by the way. But anyway, right? By looking at those growth plates. Yes? Okay? All right. Epiphyseal, that's what makes you tall. Appositional, that's what makes that bone thick through here. The shaft of the bone, thicker. Yes? How many of you know if you're taller, your bone's got to be a little thicker? If you're a big man like my son Dave that weighs about, I think 210. Memorial Day, we were jumping out of an airplane. You're supposed to be under 200 pounds. So they're going to charge him extra $20 because I think it was 215. Yeah. Right. His bones are thicker than mine, don't you think? Right? He's not scrawny like me. He's buff. He's muscular. Right? And his bones are much thicker because of what kind of bone growth? appositional, right? From the under the periosteum, right? The shaft of the bone, yes? Now, he's taller too, so he had more epiphyseal bone growth. And remember, the epiphysis is the end of the bone, right? This is the diaphysis, but anyway, epiphyseal bone growth. It's a big deal, right? Okay. Okay. Some facial bones, right? They grow all through your life. Hard to believe, yes? Right? Have you seen the old guys and got the huge nose? The big jaw? Right? Yes? That jaw and that nose, nasal bone, don't stop growing throughout your life. Yes? Yes? Right? Okay. I think it's chapter 9, right? We'll talk about the pituitary, the master gland, right? And your anterior pituitary is going to have secrete growth hormone, okay? Growth hormone. And so growth hormone stimulates what? Growth hormone stimulates what? Growth, right? Growth, yes? Right? So if you have too much growth hormone, it's very common. My father-in-law had a tumor. Very common, the pituitary. Young lady at church, she had one too, had hers cut out also. Anyway, growth hormone. You can turn out 7.5 feet tall, right? Have you seen pictures of those guys? There's a picture in our book. I'll tell you the page in just a minute, right? And that's called giantism, right? Too much growth hormone, giantism, yes? Right? Giantism, yes? Now, let me explain one other thing too, right? If you have that, say you have a tumor and you have too much growth hormone, then you'll probably be 7 feet tall and just be a massive in your body, okay, in your size. But if that tumor develops after puberty, then what will happen is, yes, acromegaly, acromegaly, right? This is where you have too much growth hormone after. And what happens is your jaw, your face, your knuckles. Have you seen these guys with massive hands? Right? Yes? Acromegaly. Acro for the joints. Acromegaly is where that comes from, right? Now, they're probably not 7 feet tall, but their hands and their jaw and their face, they just are like, I'm going to say it, caveman looking. Yes? There's a famous wrist wrestler, I'm going to think of his name in a minute, and he has this disease, and his arm is massive, and he was a really, for years, you can see him on YouTube, he was a powerful wrist wrestler, and his arms were just huge.
I think I saw a video of that guy not too long ago.
Yes.
His hand was huge, even as a child.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Oh my
genetic
God.
defect, and he learned that he was pretty strong. So he started going to these competitions, and
Yeah.
he was really good for a lot of years. There's another one, and the guy, he's not that big, and his nickname is Schoolboy. And he's young, and old Schoolboy, man, that guy is powerful, unbelievable. And you see these big bodybuilder types walk up there, and Schoolboy goes, boom, puts them down. He don't look like no bodybuilder, but he's powerful. It's interesting to see guys like that, yes. Yeah, I got the short shaft in that, but anyway, both my grandmothers were that big around, yes? And they made fun of me mercilessly in junior high and high school, and guess what? All those guys are huge with the big guts and the big butts and all. Guess what? I'm still lean and mean. That's right, yes. I'm having the last laugh for the last 50 years, right? Yes, and they're not, right? Anyway, sorry. It's not like I'm bitter or anything, right? Yeah? Okay. Okay, yes. Acromegaly. after the growth plates are closed, you're not going to get any taller, but those knuckles and the jaw and the nose, it'll get way big, okay? So that's the difference. I think, just one second, I'll tell you the page number of my book. That's in chapter 15, I believe. And there's a picture of a 7-foot tall guy. And the other one we're going to talk about is dwarfism. Yeah, okay, here we go. Figure 15.7, if you look at that, they got the guy that's 7 foot tall, and they got the guy that's about 30 inches tall, right? Yes? And the one had too much growth hormone, and the other had way too little growth hormone, yes? He's a dwarf. Now, there are several different things that can cause dwarfism, but lack of growth hormone is one of them, right? Okay? Okay. The growth hormone also works with thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone acts on every cell in your body, and it's a modulator of the growth hormone. So, if your baby does not have enough growth hormone, then the baby will have a very short neck and really thick, and it looks like this. Big protruding tongue. I'm not joking, right? And if you don't get that baby treated, the baby will be mentally retarded. Okay? Now, that's not politically correct to say that, but it's an accurate term, right? Do we have any music people in here? Please. No? Okay. What does retard mean in music? Where the music slows down. It retards, it slows down, right? So that's not a pejorative to say someone is mentally retarded. That is descriptive of what's happening, their mental growth, right? And so that's called, by the way, cretinism or cretinism, cretinism, right? So your annoying friends, right? You call them cretins or cretins, and they don't even know what you're talking about. And you're saying, basically, they're mentally retarded. Yes. And they won't know what you're talking about, right? Freaking cretin. That guy. Gee, what a jerk. Sorry, just kidding. Yes? But anyway, cretinism. Right? Okay. Bone remodeling and bone deposition and reabsorption, right? About every week, 5 to 7% of your bone mass is recycled. Is that not astounding? Every week, 5 to 7%? Okay. Hey, I tell you what, yeah, I need a drink of water, so let's take a break for just a minute and get up and stretch your legs, please. Okay? Not off. Okay? And put that in here. Thank you, mate. Yeah. And I need pen. That's the last pen. I was going to fill that one later. There's some more. How old are you? Sorry. About 19. It's usually about 19. Usually before that, but some guys. I tell them you got pen.
Yeah.
You were so I did. Yeah. Yeah.
like, no, I'm not saying that's good, but like if you had the dramatic. I know they're Nigeria. I assume they're good. But you know what I mean? Like if your dramatic ones fall out, then you can tell. But if your class is just like, but you can't tell unless you like look at it. For instance, this picture, he goes, you have like no eyelashes on your left eye. You need to get a refill. I was like, I guess I did. No, I stopped. I only had I don't know. I wasn't going to keep refilling them. My mom has some pictures. She'll go get hers and I'm like, she'll go wear yours like this. Or she has her brush and she's like, I don't know, once I break them off, it's a little annoying. Like, I have to do stuff I do that's like, well, like wash my face. Alright, let's just very nice.
He's put a virus.
Right up. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's your aunt.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. Yes, okay, your aunt, okay. Yes. Love her, sweet lady. Yes, that's why I always remember. Super, thank you very much for these. Thank you. I usually go through a box of these every summer. So I hide them in the deal, so. Okay. Wow. Let me see what else we got to talk about. Okay.
I was looking at those. With the exception of Steve.
Alrighty. Alrighty. Healthy adult bone deposition and reabsorption are equal, right? My bones are getting broken down, but they're also getting built up. If they're equal, then my bones stay the same, and I don't have problems, right? Yes? Now, the end of the femur here, right? There's a lot of pressure on that. The end of the tibia, yes. About every 5 to 6 months, it's brand new, okay? About every 5 to 6 months. Now, the shaft, the length of it, long time, much longer than that, okay? But those ends of those bones where there's tremendous stress, you're going to get a turnover much quicker. Yes. What controls remodeling? Number one, genetics. Yes, genetics. Okay. Yum. Right? No, I better not. Yeah.
Are you sure there's a caramel, mint, toasted almond?
Okay. Number one, genetics, right? There are certain genetic groups that have more trouble with osteoporosis, yes? Who's going to have more trouble with osteoporosis? Older people, yes, and ladies, but I mean, which ethnic group would you guess? No. No. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Okay. Little bitty Anglo little bitty Anglo women from Western Europe. Okay? Right? Yes? My wife is Scotch and Irish, right? She's slight of build. Yes? If you're slight of build, you're petite, you're going to have more trouble with that. Yes? And so, little Anglo women like from Norway, Sweden, England, there, Western Europe, they have much more trouble with osteoporosis. Okay? Conversely, as a general rule, black ladies have thicker bones, more muscle structure, they have less trouble with it, but can still have it, okay? Right? But especially these little bitty tiny Anglo ladies, that's who you really got to worry about that. And you've seen them too, they get the dowager's hump, the discs square down, and the vertebrae collapse, and they get the big hump, the big dowager's hump, yes. Right? So, yes. Right? So genetics are part of it. And number two, it's a negative feedback loop, right? Remember, we talked about negative feedback loops are things that the body uses that it keeps it under tight control, and it goes up and down, up and down, up and down like the thermostat coming on and off, on and off, on and off, right? Yes? As opposed to the positive. The positive, it only goes in one direction and it keeps going, 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 going until it's over, right? But what happens is that, everyone write this down, blood calcium, 9 to 11, what is it, milligrams per, per deciliter. Milligrams per deciliter, okay? 9 to 11, that's a 1-1. 9 to 11, okay? Right? There's certain things you got to know. There's certain things you got to figure out. There's certain things you got to memorize by rote, and that's one of them. 9 to 11, okay? That's your blood calcium. And when your blood calcium gets low, right? Okay, you know what your thyroids are, right? Right here, your thyroid gland. Over here and over here, 2 lobes, isthmus in between, right? So the thyroid is shaped like that. Yes. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4 parathyroids, PTH, parathyroids, right? And those parathyroids secrete parathyroid hormone. And the parathyroid hormone stimulates the osteoclasts, right? And what do the osteoclasts do? Clasts. They break down the bone, right? They break down the bone, yes? So, if my blood calcium gets 7, right? It's not high enough, it's too low. So my parathyroid is going to pick that up, right? It's a negative feedback. And the parathyroid is going to secrete parathyroid hormone, and the parathyroid hormone is going to stimulate the osteoclasts, right? They break down the bone, and they break down the bone, and what happens is the blood calcium will go up, right? To keep it to that 9 to 11. Yes? Okay? Now, here you go. My father-in-law, Richard, he's a big dude. He's like 6'4". He's 3 of me, okay? He's big. Played college basketball in the 50s, all right? He's 87 years old now. Guess where he had a tumor? Parathyroid. Guess what it did? Guess what did his blood calcium run 9 to 11? No, 16 or 17, up high, right? Oh, by the way, if your blood calcium runs too high, your body goes, hey, we got too much calcium here, man. Shove it somewhere, right? And where was it shoving the calcium? Well, it can in the muscle, but please tell me you figured out what that is, right? In the kidneys, right? And you get a stone, and if the stone goes down and gets lodged in here, I don't know, I've never had one, but they tell me mega pain. Anybody in here had a kidney stone? Yes? Would you care to share? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Well, I mean, every time it came out, like I had to catch them, but it was because I was very dehydrated. We were in California and I didn't drink water.
Yes. Do not let yourself get dehydrated.
Yeah.
Because
I
if
got
you
really
let yourself get dehydrated, then commonly stones will start coming down.
Yeah.
It's very common we have tiny little stones and they come out and we don't even know it. But yes, do not let yourself get dehydrated.
Yeah.
Yes.
They said that was the main cause. I was really dehydrated and I don't know what else they said.
Oxalates, too many oxalates, or genetics.
Yeah, something like that. But I was like, they would put the IV in, and my body just wasn't absorbing it. So like, it was hard for me to pass them.
I see.
It was
Okay.
really miserable.
Did you have to have surgery or such, or did they reach up to there and they go and squeeze them? Or they used to, maybe they still do, put you in the lithotripter in a big bucket of water and it ultrasound and it breaks them up and then you.
I passed. I had to pass them on my own.
Okay.
They usually like nowadays just like a morphine drip for comfort and then you have to
Pass
pass
them.
it.
Yeah, I got like an IV and I had medicine and then I just had to go.
Yes. Okay. Thank God I haven't ever had them. They don't run in my family. But, you know, it's just started climbing season. I called my climbing partner, hey, when we're going, man, because I'm free. I need you to pick out a date and such. But when I get up, first thing we get out of, we didn't put up a tent. We climb in the back of his truck. But anyway, it's common. I will literally drink a quart of Gatorade because I know at the start of the day, because I know I'm gonna need those electrolytes, and I'm gonna be sweating, and I don't want to get dehydrated. And I'd rather carry the water in my body than on my back. And so it's common, I will drink a quart of Gatorade before to almost hyperhydrate. And sometimes when I do that, I'll drink a quart of Gatorade and we're going for hours and I'm sucking wind, right? And I don't usually have to urinate. I was gonna say something cruder, but anyhow, right? Yeah? Because I'm sweating so much, yes? But anyway, okay, my father-in-law having kidney stones over and over again in his 50s, right? And the urologist said, well, you know, some people, they just do blah, 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 this and that. Well, he hired a new kid at work, and he was training the kid, and, you know, they're driving around in the car in San Antonio, they're sales guys, and he's like telling them about how he's had these kidney stones over and over again. And the guy says, oh, my father had that. He had a tumor on his parathyroid. So Richard went to the urologist and said, hey, could I have a tumor? Well, yeah, that's possible. Well, could you do the test? They do the MRI, and guess what? He's got a parathyroid tumor. That's why he's having kidney stones every 18 months, right? So what's the first thing you do when you're in a situation like that? The very first thing to do? I didn't hear you, Albert. Ask for a... No, the very first thing you do is fire that urologist and go find you a good one. That's the first thing you do, right?
I said not to piss off.
Okay, you're a good man, sir. And you're a good sport. I really appreciate that, right? A big man with big shoulders. He's tough. He can take it. Yes? All right. Went to a good urologist, and they made a little slit right here, and they cut it out. And within 24 hours, guess what? His blood calcium was running. After running high for years, 9 to 11, normal, right? So if one of your loved ones starts having kidney stones over and over and over again, you get a MRI of that neck to see, I don't know, they might, CT scans more so for bones, I believe. But anyway, get an MRI of that neck, make sure they don't have a tumor, because it's no fun to have kidney stones over and over and over again. Okay? Yes. Right? Okay. Okay. If your blood calcium gets too low, right? If your blood calcium gets too low, then your muscles will get jumpy, right? In physical examination, I was taught you do this, and if they go, that's called Travastek sign, and that's a sign of low blood calcium, right? And oh, by the way, if your blood calcium is too high, right, then you want to lay in the chair and do nothing. You just don't want to move around very much at all, okay? can become non-responsive and not function.
Thank you.
Okay? And again, if that blood calcium runs too high for too long, you can stick that calcium in the soft tissues, in the muscles, in the other organs, but especially in the kidneys. Right? Okay. Okay. I did pretty good on that one, huh? You could tell it was a bone, huh? Yes? Yes, at least a C plus, maybe even a B. Yep. Okay. Wolff's Law. Wolff's Law is very interesting. WOLFFS, Wolff's Law, right? Bone responds to the stress put on it. That's my take on it, right? Yes? Bones respond to the stress put on it. Yes? Let me explain, right? If you're an astronaut and you go up there and float around in space for a year, what happens to your bones? Say that again.
Like the weight's taken off.
The weight is taken off, and so what happens to the bones?
They become weak.
They become weaker, right? Yes, because there's no stress put on that bone, right? Conversely, you put a lot of stress on a bone, and little by little, it gets stronger. You lift weights, you work out, your bones are going to get stronger, right? Yes? Now, for ladies, to prevent osteoporosis, you want exercise, but what kind of exercise do you want?
Muscle building?
Okay, well, that's good, yes. But I'm looking for another term.
Cardio?
Cardio, this is good, but not exactly. Let me ask you this. The doctor says, oh, you're getting a little osteoporotic. You need to work on strengthening those bones. Is he going to recommend jogging or swimming?
Swimming.
Jogging. Why?
You're putting stress on the
Right? Because jogging, boom, 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 you're pounding those bones. And swimming, right? Swimming is a great exercise. I took it in college. It was great. Love it. But you're not, the buoyancy of the water takes about a third of the weight off. So you're not going to make your bones strong by going swimming. You're going to make your bones strong by jogging, by riding a bike, weight-bearing exercise, right? You need to do weight-bearing exercise, yes? Okay? Because bone responds to the stress put on it. And if you do not put stress on it, it weakens. Yes? Right? Yes? Okay, the book's example is a tennis player. Right? Right? If you cut a section through the forearm of a tennis player, of their serving arm, right? I'm left-handed. Yes? Right? They serve that ball, sometimes 100 miles an hour. Whack. Yes? Okay? This is a normal forearm section. But if it's a tennis player, especially that spends hours and hours and hours, guess what? That bone is going to be much thicker. Yes? Much thicker. Why is it going to be thicker? Because that's their serving arm. Wham! They're putting a lot of stress on that. And because of the stress, it's going to build up that bone, yes? I competed for about 14 years. I was a fencer. I was an épée fencer, you know, the guys with the swords, you know. I was a fencer. And My left arm was my sword arm. And I assure you, this is about 39 inches long, right? And such. And in fencing, there's no weight classifications. So they'd get a guy, I'd have to fight a guy as big as Albert, right? You know what it's like to face a guy as big as Albert coming at you with a sword? Right? Scary, yes? Scary, right? When I first started, yeah, one time I'm fighting a big guy like Albert. You know, I have my sword out there. Have you seen in the movies where they go, whoosh, and the sword goes flying? Right, that's what the big guy did to me. I'm telling you, it went flying. It's attached by the heel. Yes? Right? So I learned right quick. You fight a big guy, you never stand there like this. Oh yeah, what do? You hold it down here, over here, here, you go up, right? Because they're bigger and stronger, but I was always faster, right? So I run in there, stick them, and get out of there fast. Because if I stand there, they're going to knock. One guy in Epee, the whole body's a target, right? My friend Craig Ledford, as tall as me, twice as big, about your size. What did he do? Hit me in the head. Pow! Knocked me on the ground, man. Yes?
Is that like jousting?
No. Epee fencing, right? Yes. I was in this one match with this big black dude. He was big. He wasn't tall, but he was this big around. He was really good. He could move really fast for a fat man, you know. So he comes at me, and you know what I did? I did the boar's thrust. The boar's thrust is this. He's coming at me, and I did the boar's thrust. And I hit him right in the groin. Oh, man. Yes, and I knew it was coming. Took him about 3 minutes, and he tried to pop me there too, but he never could get me. Bones respond to the stress put on it, okay? If this is your serving arm or your sword arm, it's going to get thicker and stronger. Conversely, if you lay in bed and don't put any weight on your bones, after a period of time, you're going to get osteoporosis. Think about a person who is bedfast for long periods of time, right? I had one patient at Clayton, little bitty Anglo lady, and she had 5 or 6 compression fractures. We're going to talk about it in a second, right? She had to wear a garment with metal stays back here to help her up, because otherwise she was just like this, right? Yes? So, Wolf's Law. Bone responds to the stress put on it. An astronaut's bones get weaker. An athlete, like a fencer, like a tennis player, like a jogger, a lot of weight-bearing exercise, a weightlifter, their bones are going to get stronger, right? You don't put stress on your bones, they get weaker. Yes? Right? My wife, she walks the dogs 5 days a week in the mornings, right? Because I want her to get that weight-bearing exercise. Yes? Right? Yeah. So, anyway, Wolf's Law. Oh, by the way, see if you can figure this one out.
Foot.
Right? What is that?
Foot.
It's a lateral of the foot, right? It's an ankle mortise, right? This is your plantar fascia, right? Right? And what is that?
Okay.
It's an osteophyte. Yeah, it is a calcaneus. Very good. But that is an osteophyte, right? That's an osteophyte, right? What's the layman's term for that on your foot?
Bridge of your foot?
Huh?
The bridge?
Heel spur.
Heel spur. Thank you, sir. Right? Okay, you have an arch in your foot, yes? And the arch is like this. And as we get older, the ligaments of the foot break down, right? We jump up for basketball, this and that. As you get older, your foot gets a little longer, right? For years, I was 9, 9.5, and for about the last 10 years I've been a size 10, right? But that arch goes along. Well, that plantar fascia attaches to the ball of your foot and to the calcaneus. And that stretching, right? And where bone gets stress put on it and where ligaments get stress put on them, what's going to happen is your body tries to make it stronger by sticking bone there. So you get a heel spur, right? Now, it's very controversial. Some people say, no, the heel spur never hurts. It's the plantar fascia. That's where the pain comes from, right? If you've ever had one, it hurts to walk, right? Yes? Okay? But anyway, that's an example of Wolff's Law. Oh, by the way, my dumbbells, I got these cool dumbbells where you go click, 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 and they go from 5 pounds to 7.5 to 10, up to 52.5 pounds. If I take that dumbbell and I'm doing this all day long, all day long, all day long, what's going to happen to that tendon right there on the end where it attaches to the bone? What am I going to get? Not a heel spur. No, we'll get a heel spur.
Elbow spur.
I'm going to need elbow spur, right? Yes? Because bones respond to the stress put on it. So if you put stress on it, that happens, right? Yes? In your spine, the vertebrae, got a disc in between, right? But you got powerful ligaments here. What happens when you get older? Right? Right? They ossify, get spurs, right? Yes? Okay? So anytime you put stress on a bone, Wolff's Law says that bone's going to respond by strengthening it, right? Conversely, if you take all the stress off a bone, then it's going to weaken, okay? Yes? But it's a defense mechanism. The body is made to heal itself. Okay? Yes, sir.
A question. So, like, after my little brothers were real short. After a long period of time of just playing basketball, they like lose so much, and that kind
After years of playing basketball, he grew a bunch.
yeah, lengthening. They got really tall.
He got really tall.
Yeah, they're like the tallest in the family. Everybody else is like 5'5".
Yeah. That'd be hard to say. I doubt it. Okay. What happens is part of you is from your mom, part of you is from your dad, and they're genetic factors, right?
They're short.
My oldest brother is like, my dad was 5'9", the average size for a man. I'm 6'2", or was, probably 6'1" now. Like my older brother, 4 years older than me, is an inch taller than me. And both my sisters are short, right? So you never know in a family who's going to be the tall one. You just never know, right? Yes, I'm the skinniest of all my brothers and sisters. I'm the most athletic. I'm the one that's been exercising for the last 5 years, right? And they never did. And guess what happened to them? All of them. Right? You don't watch what you eat, you don't exercise. Anyway, we'll talk about that in the nutrition chapter. I'll teach you how to stay lean and mean, really. Right? But anyway, okay, Wolff's Law, right? Okay, now, you need let's see what page is this. Okay, we're going to go over the the types of fractures, right? Okay, got to know your fractures, ladies. If you're going to take the HESI, you got to know your fractures, okay? Now, there's only 6 that we're going to talk about, okay? There's only 6 that we're going to talk about, and you need to look at the pictures in the book because this is on the test, the HESI test, so therefore I put it on my test commonly, right? Okay, now, this one's your lower leg bone, your tib and your fib, your tibia and your fibula, okay? Right? Here we go. Here's the tib coming down. Here's the fib over here, right? And when your bone gets broken into a bunch of pieces, 3 or more, right? That is said to be comminuted. Comminuted. That's a comminuted fracture, right? 3 or more pieces. Yes? Okay. Number 2, spiral. S-P-I-R-A-L. See how that crack goes across the bone? Now, this is common in sports, right? Your foot is planted, and then all of a sudden, you twist around like basketball or something, okay? Spiral fractures are extremely common in sports. The foot is planted and it's twisted, okay? Right? Spiral fractures. Yes? The next is, here's your skull. You get hit on the skull, and part of the skull will get mashed down, and it will be depressed. D-E-P-R-E-S-S-E-D. Is that the word? Yeah, that's what the book used. Yes, depressed. Okay? Now, right? And again, this is in your book, table 6.2. Write that down, table 6.2 for your fractures, okay? You must know your fractures. I'm going to ask you 1 or 2 of your fractures on the midterm. Okay? Right? Compression fracture, C-O-M-P-R-E-S-S-I-O-N. A compression fracture, right? That's very simple. Here's a vertebrae. Looks like this. Sitting on top of the other one. And what happens is, you get too much pressure, and the vertebrae will end up looking the body, this is called the body of the vertebrae, and it'll get squeezed down. It'll get crushed down, right? It's called it gets compressed, okay? A compression fracture, right? Yes? Now, who gets these compression fractures where this vertebrae goes, and it used to be this tall, and now it's this tall? Who gets those?
Weightlifters and runners.
Okay? Sorry, good guess? Yes?
Basketball players.
No.
Football players.
Possibly, but I'm looking
Mouse
for
players.
men or women. Who more commonly, men or women?
Men.
And
Women.
women, right? Right? They're very common. These little old ladies, they're 75 years old, and they bend over like this, and they raise up the bed, and they go to fold it, the sheet underneath it, right? Or they fall down, boom, right? They're osteoporotic. Their bones are not very strong, right? Compression fractures are very, very common. I've seen a bunch of them in my office. And now, I've seen a couple of dozen ladies. I've seen one man with them, but anyway, because men generally don't get osteoporosis near as much. And this was a little bitty scrawny guy like me, but he wasn't much of an exerciser, okay? But anyway, now this squeezes down, causes tremendous pain, okay? What is the treatment for that, by the way? Oh, by the way, my friend had one when he was in his late 20s, riding a bicycle down in the canyon, flying headfirst over the handlebars. Boom, busted his helmet in 6 pieces, right? And compressed his thoracic spine, 1 or 2 of them back here. Yes? So it can happen to athletes. It can happen to young people, right? But it's mainly little old ladies, and that gets crushed down, okay? Now, oh, by the way, when I was in college, cheerleader, woo, right? They didn't catch her. Go boom, right down on her gluteal region. And hit so hard, right? So, if you're a 16-year-old cheerleader and you compress several of them, what do? They can't go in there and pull that apart, right? Because they don't want you to be hyperkyphotic for the rest of your life, because one of your vertebrae used to be this tall, now it's this tall, right? Okay, but they don't do that commonly. Now commonly what they do is stick a needle through the back here into that vertebrae, and they squirt gel in there. And when they squirt that gel in there, it does this. Goes back to being tall, and it's very common. The pain goes away very quickly. Okay? So that's the treatment now. Years ago, the treatment was, here, take these painkillers. It usually takes about 6 weeks. It'll quit hurting, right? If you have a bunch of them, maybe a motorcycle wreck or something, or a car wreck, then that can happen. I treated a guy. He had 3 of them in his thoracic spine. He was on a telephone pole, and the pole broke. And he went down, and when the pole got almost to the ground, guess what happened? The wire came taut and threw him again that way, right? He had 3 fractures. Yes. Chiropractors, we don't treat fractures, but when the fracture healed up, let me tell you, he had some back pain, you can imagine, right? So that's when I treated him afterwards, yes. Anyway, again, years ago, it was painkillers. Now they stick a needle in there, yes, and the pain goes away quickly, yes. Now, they're sticking some kind of a gel in your vertebrae, and it's strange. Here's the kicker, though. Here's the problem. If you have this done, guess what? That probably went down because you were osteoporotic. And they put that gel in there, and it makes it tall again, and the pain goes away. Great, super. Guess what? All the vertebrae above it and below it have more stress on it now. And guess what you're much more likely to have within the next 6 or 8 months? Another fracture, right? So, I don't know what I would do. I mean, it makes the pain go away real quick. It's pretty amazing, and people love it. But then 6 months later, and they have another fracture, they're not very happy, right?
Is that what they call a trigger point injection?
No,
Or is
ma'am.
that something different?
That's in the muscles.
Okay.
That's into a muscle. Yeah, trigger point. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, that's the treatment, and it's amazing. It makes them quit hurting right quick, right? It's the same with lateral epicondylitis, right? Tennis elbow. You get that? Okay. They can give a cortisone shot. It's amazing. It goes away quickly. I mean, within 2 days, you're like, wow, my arm feels great. It's been hurting for weeks. And now it feels great. And usually within 3 weeks, guess what? It's back and it's worse because that covered it up and it didn't heal properly, see? So, go figure. But anyway, yes? So, different treatment for that, and I'll tell you about later. But anyway, yeah. So that's the thing. Compression fracture, super common, little old ladies, right? Okay. Okay. Epiphyseal. Epiphyseal. Yes? Right? Yes? Epiphysis of the bone, you get a fracture across here, across the growth plate. Okay? Now, 2, it's very common you get one of these and it'll look like this because it's shoved over. Okay? And that's when you're having surgery because the doctor's got to line that back up and put a screw in it. Yes? Okay? Your growth plate. It's very serious, right? Now, the last one, the green stick, right? Greenstick, right? Yes? In the olden days, when I was a kid, you got whipped with a switch, yes? And if you take a little green stick, and if you bend it this way, right? What's going to happen is, it's going to break. It's going to break across here, right? Yes? You've done that before, right? Green stick fractures are mainly little children. Their bones aren't that strong. Yes? And they got too much lateral stress and they get a little crack in it. Just like you take a stick and you go, right, in the outer part here, superior, I should say, maybe, right? That's what a green stick fracture is. I had a lady in my office on the table, and my phone rang. Her phone rang first. She didn't answer it because I was working on her. And then the phone at the office rang. So I went up there and I answered it. And they said, oh, is so-and-so in there? Yes. She needs to come. She needs to come right now. Her daughter's got hurt at school, right? And about a week later, she showed me the fracture. Oh my gosh, it was a humongous green stick fracture. I mean, that little girl's arm was bowed literally like that. I mean, it just was like, anyway, it was mega. It was the ugliest, you know. But little children are very malleable, so they straightened it, put the cast on it, healed up fine, everything's good. But it's very common up. I had one of those this forearm. I fell off Dad's workbench. This arm hit first, so I got the fracture on this one, right? Green stick fracture, it's very common, and that's where it's from, right? When you break the stick, does the bottom part usually separate or break? No, the bottom part doesn't break. It's the top part where the stress is put on it. Yes, green stick fracture, okay? All right, so comminuted, a bunch of little pieces. Spiral, sports, yes. Depressed, boom. Compression fracture, very, 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 very common. Epiphyseal fracture. Oh, my son, he broke his growth plate. He's got to have surgery, right? There's a real common one too of the ankle. Ankle joint looks like this, right? Yes, and they even want. And it's like Salter Harris number 1, number 2, number 3, or oh, I did too many. There's only 4. Salter Harris number 1, 2, 3, or 4, and the doctor will say is a Salter Harris fracture of the right ankle, and then you'll do the surgery on it where this comes off. This is broken off. It's called a Salter Harris fracture. Very common, and it's number 1, 2, 3, 4 Salter Harris. So, but I don't deal with fractures in my work. I find them, it's not unusual, but then I say, okay, you gotta go to the hospital now. Because we don't treat fractures, right? Found a fracture on this one woman's toe. I forget what happened, some kind of trauma. She said, is it broken? I said, yeah, it's broken. You go to the hospital. She said, what are they gonna do? It was like her little toe. I said, they're going to go like this, and they're going to buddy tape it to the next one because it wasn't displaced or anything. She said, well, I don't really need to go then if that's all they're going to do and this and that. And I said, look, I'm a chiropractor. I don't treat fractures. I am supposed to tell you, go straight to the hospital. You have a fracture, right? Like, oh, okay. I said, legally, that's what I'm supposed to tell you. And what did she do? She went on and put some tape on it, right? Yeah, because it wasn't displaced. And that's all they were going to do. Maybe give her some painkillers too, and charge her $2,500 to go to the ER, right? And another $500 for the x-rays. So, but anyway, but I'm like, I didn't want to get sued, so I'm like, no, you must. It is my job to tell you, you have a fracture and you need to go to the hospital.
In athletic training for football, we are taught if it's not displaced, just to tape it and send them back in the game. But we're supposed to tell them hey, after the game, tell your mom to take you to the hospital. If it's not displaced, we put them back in.
That's fun. Okay, all right, here we go. Okay. Now, if you have a fracture and it's not sticking out of the skin, that is a closed fracture or a simple fracture. Write that down, right? A closed or a simple fracture, the bone's not sticking out of the skin. And if the bone is sticking out of the skin, that's called an open fracture or a compound fracture. Okay? So it's, yes, ma'am. Open or compound, that's where it's sticking out of the skin. That's very serious because you can get a bone infection. If it's not sticking out of the skin, that's a simple fracture or a closed fracture. Okay? Okay. Osteomalacia. Osteomalacia means the soft bones, basically, okay? Now, there are many things that can cause osteomalacia, okay? But, let me write this down. Osteomalacia, okay? Osteomalacia, it means soft bones, okay? The most common thing that they put on the test, by the way, is rickets. R-I-C-K-E-T-T-S. Rickets. If you don't get enough sunshine, if you don't get enough milk, it was very common in the 50s and the 60s in England that they don't get near as much sunshine as we get, okay? And the people were poor, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, okay? Especially right after the war. And children would not get enough milk and not enough sunshine, and their bones were soft. And when that would happen, right? Now, their legs would bow like that, okay? Can be lack of vitamin D and such. Now, what is all the milk? What do they add to all the milk, by the way?
Calcium, vitamin D.
Vitamin D, right? Most milk, right? Unless you go get it directly from the farm, it's got vitamin D to prevent this. Yes? And again, the legs bowed. Now, someone even my age, right? I had never seen this before until about 8 or 9 years ago. I was on a cruise. I was on an Alaska cruise up there, and we got off in, I can't remember, Skagway or somewhere, or Nome, and there was a lady that was on the cruise. There was like 5,000 people on this ship. I mean, it's a big ship, right? But anyway, there was a lady, and she was a little bit heavy set, and her legs were just like that, and she walked like this. And I saw that lady, and I said, oh my God, I've never seen that before. That lady had rickets. Jeez. Right? She had the book. They used to, in England, they braced the legs with metal braces so the kid could walk, right? Yes? But they started putting vitamin D in the milk, and they started some social programs where, like here we call it WIC, right? Women's, Infant, and Children, yes. Anyway, same type deal there. So you just don't see this anymore. Now you may see it if you go to Africa, right? And especially next year or two because of this war in Ukraine, right? Yes, they can't get the food out, this and that. You're going to see a lot of starving kids in Africa and South America, all because one freaking crazy man started a war for no reason, right? Yes. And that's what's going to happen. People will die and starve. We even may have some food shortages here in the U.S. But anyway, rickets. Sorry, I didn't mean to get into politics, but it's sad, right? One crazy man is going to kill a bunch of people. They're estimating that like 15,000 of those Russians have got killed already. 15,000? Jeez. That's more than we lost in 20 years in Afghanistan. Right? But anyway, rickets. It's very common. It's very, on the test, I'm saying, it's very common that they put that question on the test. Lack of vitamin D, right? Lack of vitamin D. It's also lack of protein too. But anyway, especially vitamin D. So rickets. Yes? Okay. Insufficient calcium or vitamin D. Okay? Calcium or vitamin D. Yes? Okay. Now, real quickly, let's finish this up real quickly here, okay? Now, osteopenia, right, leads to osteoporosis, right? And then you get the compression fractures, yes? That is where the reabsorption of the bone outstrips the deposition of the bone, right? Okay? Oh, by the way, again, osteobonepenia, by the way, means poor bone, right? That's a precursor to full-blown osteoporosis. They do a scan, I think it's called a DEXA scan, and they tell you how strong your bones are, basically, ladies, okay? Right? Okay. Now, by the way, this can develop at any age. More commonly after ladies go through menopause, but it can happen at any age, right? One of my patients, she broke her leg, she broke her tibia and fibula, okay? And after that, it did heal up in time finally, but she developed osteoporosis distal to the fracture site, okay? So it can happen at any time, but it's much more commonly little old ladies over 50, right? Because they don't have estrogen, yes? Okay? Now let's see what we got here. Okay, the spine, we talked about compression fractures, okay? Oh, by the way, yes, here's the femur, and I didn't draw it very well, right? This is the neck of the femur, right? The neck of the femur, and that's very common where ladies break their hip. Men too, but anyway, especially ladies, right? And they know percentages, how many percent break here, how many percent break here, how many percent break here, etc., right? It's very common, okay? Have osteoporosis. Now, there's a big question. Did they fall down and break their hip? Or did their hip break and they fell down? Okay? I can't answer that. You have to think about it. But anyway, my next door neighbor, the one I told you about, she's like 85 years old. And, she was a saltgrass widow and such. That's an old term. But anyway, right? And such. But I would go over there and do things for her, change light bulbs and change the filters and the heater and such. And so I come home at lunch one day and there's an ambulance there. And what happened was she went down in the basement to change the filter. But thankfully the yard man was there. All she had to do was ask me to do it. I would have gone there. It didn't take 10 seconds, right? But thankfully, she told the yard man, I'm going down in the basement. If I don't come back up in 10 minutes, then you come looking for me. He went down there. She broke her hip. She was laying there. She wouldn't have told that guy. She would have died because she would go through bouts of depression where she would shut the windows and I'd knock on the door. She would not answer the door and this and that, right? She was not resilient. Right? Because her husband ran off with the secretary 40 years earlier and she never got over it. She was not
And
resilient.
it's called a what? A salty what?
Saltgrass.
Saltgrass.
That means she was, that's an old expression, meaning she was
You ran
divorced
off
from
with
years
someone.
ago. Right? Yeah. I mean, my mom would use that expression, but anyway, you don't hear that anymore. My mom, a lovely southern lady, but anyway, yeah. So, anyway, right? It can happen. That was very wise telling the yard man. And that's, she wasn't a very big lady, but me and the yard man they sent two little bitty ladies with an ambulance to pick her up, and they strapped her up. And me and the yard man had to carry her up the stairs and around the corner. God, that was hard. Thank God Mr. M.A. Taylor, big black man, strong, nicest guy. Love that guy. He moved away, but anyway, me and Mr. Turner, thank God I got the head end. I got the head end, he got the bottom end, right? He was twice as big as me, but anyway, Mr. Turner, great guy, I love that black man, but anyway. Okay, right? Okay, here we go. Postmenopausal, 30% of the, you don't have to write these numbers down, I'm just gonna tell you. 30% of the women aged 60 to 70 have osteoporosis. And by the time ladies are 80 years old, about 70% of them, 70% of them, okay? 30% of Caucasian women, Anglo ladies, will have a bone fracture due to osteoporosis. 30%, 3 in 10, due to osteoporosis, right? Number 2, petite. Little bitty petite people, their bones aren't as strong, and so they're more likely to have fractures, yes? Okay? Lack of weight-bearing exercise, yes? If you never get any weight-bearing exercise, you're not strengthening your bones and they will get weaker, 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 especially after that estrogen goes away at menopause, right? Poor diet, yes? Right? Yes, you need your calcium, but you need protein. It's very important. There's a lot of protein involved, yes? So protein and calcium is important, but protein is very important. All right, or diet. Yes. Oh, by the way, do I have any vegetarians here? Yes. I didn't think so. Right? Yes. Usually vegetarians, it's much harder for them to absorb plant protein. You don't get near as much good out of it as you do red meat, animal protein. It's just a fact, right? The British, beef eater, right? Big tough guy from eating a lot of beef. Yes. Right? Not from pea eaters, right? No, beef eater. Yes.
I tried.
Right.
It lasted like maybe an
Yeah, I was gonna say, right? The Tower of London, they got the big hats on and the red suits. ER, Elizabeth Regina on their deal, and the black pants, and they stand there with their, beef eaters. That's what they're called, beef eaters. Yes. Oh, by the way, have a Uzi underneath that so they can pull it out and tap any terrorist. It's true. You don't know that because there's padding in that chest, but they do. Don't bump into one, right? Yes, don't mess with a beef eater, even if you're a big dude, because he's got a machine gun stuffed under there. Okay? Abnormal vitamin D receptors. There are a small amount of people that something's the matter with their vitamin D receptors, and so they have trouble. Okay? Smoking reduces estrogen, right? Estrogen keeps the bones strong. You go through osteoporosis and the bones weaken. So smokers they break down their estrogen, right? By the way, who has more heart disease, men or women?
Men.
How many say men? Okay. How many say women? Okay. Guess what? It's pretty close. They have about the same amount, but here's the thing. Men get it when they're 35, 40, 45, 50. Women are pretty much protected because of estrogen and stuff until they're 50. Then menopause, the change, right? They don't have as much estrogen, and women get it when they're 68, 70, 75, 80. Men get it when they're 55, 60, 65. So women have just as much as men, but it's like 15 or 20 years later, okay, when the women get it. So women have it just as much as men, but it's much later, okay? And again, estrogen levels, yes? Certain diseases, hyperthyroid will give you osteoporosis, right? Diabetes, okay? The treatment, it's pretty standard. They say take calcium. Several studies they've done several studies that just taking oral calcium doesn't seem to help that much. Okay? But I mean, that's been the standard treatment. Vitamin D, right? I take the vitamin D every day, and it's very good. Now, a controversial one, right? HRT. hormone replacement therapy, okay? Hormone replacement therapy. Why is that controversial? Okay, people of my mom's generation, the ladies, almost always the doctors shoved hormones. Oh, you got to take your hormones. Take the hormones, right? Yes. It'll keep your bones from getting weak, yes. The trouble is, the studies showed that with hormone replacement therapies, heart attacks go up, breast cancer goes up, stroke goes up, right? So all these ladies that they shoved the hormones had more heart attacks, breast cancer, and strokes, right? Now don't get me wrong. Every time you take a medicine, you got to decide. There are some ladies that really need it, right? Maybe you had to have a hysterectomy when you were 19 years old because you had a cancer, right? So there are some ladies that really need it. But generalized, they pass it out like candy to the ladies of my mom's generation. And then all this bad stuff came out that happened. So they don't do that anymore, right? But anyway, but they're there is a place for it, right? But it's very small. It's not almost every woman. That was really such, huh? Not good. Yes? Right? Prevention. How do you prevent osteoporosis? Right? Get enough calcium when you're young and get that exercise, right? Get that exercise. Get a lot of calcium, okay? Protein in your diet, okay? And weight-bearing exercise and sunshine, ladies. Remember, don't abuse your skin. Don't abuse it. Try not to get sunburned. Joseph, try not to get sunburned. But about 15 or 20 minutes and you're not going to get burned. Then you need to go in, okay? If you do that gradually, you will get some sunshine and you will make the vitamin D and you won't damage your skin, right? Now, the dermatologists, because they treat skin cancer all the time, are very anti-sun, but it's changing. Now, it's changing because we're finding out vitamin D, how important it is, right? There's another thing that I didn't mention in the chapter that I wanted to mention and that is this. Okay? There's a supplement made by there's a hormone made by the pineal gland, right? That we'll talk about in the future chapter, right? Melatonin. Yes, and what's melatonin help us do? Sleep, right? Melatonin helps us sleep, right? Melatonin is a big it'll help us go to sleep, right? Now, if you take melatonin, is it going to knock you out?
No.
No. Melatonin will help, but it's not like taking a sleeping pill, okay? It's not like taking a sleeping pill, okay? So, but it's very helpful. Yes? Now, I very rarely, but occasionally will take one, but not very often. If you get to where you take something like that over and over and over again, guess what? Your body goes, hey, we don't need to make that, right? Because we got plenty of it, yes? So you can change your body chemistry by doing that. So I take that, but every once in a while. The reason I mention that is this. When we're out in the sun, there's the visible spectrum that we can see, then there's infrared, and in the middle there's near infrared, NIR, near infrared. And the near infrared, even if we have a long sleeve shirt on, unless it's real thick like a coat or something, we'll get near infrared. And guess what? In the mitochondria of they have found in the mitochondria of every cell of our body, right? Guess what it makes? Melatonin. It's an anti-cancer, right? It's an antioxidant. It's very good. You need the sunshine. You need the sunshine. Don't abuse your body. And you know, I see these ladies and they're super, super tan and this and that. And I think you're abusing your skin and you're really going to regret that when you're 60 years old. You're really going to regret that. The other side of that is It's important to get your sunshine, right? And melatonin is very important, and they just discovered that, right? Do you watch MedCram? You need to go on MedCram, 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 Roger Seaholt, he's a genius, right? He preps people to take the MCAT. He's got like 3 or 4 certifications, and he does all these lectures, and there's one that's about an hour long, all about that topic. You should watch it. He's a genius. I love that guy. He's an amazing teacher. But anyway, Ed Graham, Roger Seahult, Sehult, right? There's one thing I don't like. He's real pro-vegetarian, and when you're pro-vegetarian, you don't get enough protein. Vegetarians are usually skinny people, aren't they? Right? Yes, right? Or not big stout people usually, right? And it's from they don't get enough protein and certain nutrients, I don't think, and essential amino acids. We have to get certain essential amino acids from our diet. If you don't get enough from your diet, then it's not good. So, but anyway, melatonin is very important. Get your sunshine. Yes, don't abuse your skin, but get your sunshine, right? Very, very, very important, right? To lead a healthy life, right? Lifestyle is more powerful than any drug. The way you live your life is going to determine what kind of health you're going to have, your health habits. Oh, by the way, when you get in your 40s and 50s, right? If you don't exercise, if you're overweight, if you smoke, if you have all these bad health habits, guess what's going to happen when you're in your 60s and 70s?
Your health is gonna decline.
It's going to go way down, right? So a very good predictor of whether you're going to have a great retirement. I'm going to have a great retirement. I'm going to travel the world, right? I haven't been to Antarctica yet. I have not been to Africa. I want to go to Africa really bad, yes? I have friends that grew up there. So I'm going. I'm telling you, I'm going. I almost went 3 years ago, but it's like, okay, you can go to Africa and climb the mountain, or you can spend that $10,000 on this new motorcycle. Guess what I got?
Motorcycle.
Yes, but I'm going, right? And so, but anyway, your health in the middle age is going to determine, boom, what you're like when you're in your 60s and 70s, right? And if you're in your 60s and 70s and you're still rocking and rolling, and you can still go and you can still walk for miles, you're going to have a great time. And if you're on a bunch of pills and you're going to the doctor all the time, and you got type 2 diabetes, not good, right? Yes? We talk about lifespan. Lifespan is not near as important as health span, right? My mom made 80 and then she went into Alzheimer's. So she lived to 90, but she lived 10 years with Alzheimer's, right? It wasn't much of a life, yes?
Mm-hmm.
So the way you run your life, especially in middle age on, yes? When you're young, you can get away with a lot of stuff, not exercising. I didn't exercise when I was at college. I was working 3 jobs, but as soon as I got out of college, I started, right? Yes? So what I'm trying to get across to you folks is this up to you. If you want to have good health, you want to have a good lifestyle, you want to have a good retirement, and enjoy those years and this and that, right?
I wish someone was telling me this like 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, people don't realize,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is a time in your life when, you know, you're hustling, you're trying to get education, you're trying to pay for everything and all that stuff. It's a very stressful time. But you get in that middle age, you better really, really think about, do I want to be healthy? Because if you make piles of money and then you're 65 years old and you have very bad health, Howard Hughes, all the money couldn't do anything, right? Yes? Alright? So, but anyway, okay, y'all, see y'all tomorrow. Have a good evening.